It is so nice to see you all. Thank you so much for coming to this Ask CASA session. Tonight we have a very special presentation that we're very excited about. We have 3 individuals here to talk to us about MARE, which is the Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange. We have Ricardo Franco, which is the Associate Director at MARE. We have Liz Joyle, the Director of Family Support Services, and we also have Hannah Hoffman, the Child Services Coordinator. So I am going to hand it over to the 3 of them. They have some slides that they are going to share. And then at the end, they have some dedicated time that will be for a Q&A. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat if you have any as the presentation goes on, but just keep in mind that we will kind of visit them at the end. All right, I will hand it over to you guys.
Great. Well, thank you, Jordan, very much. I'm just going to share my slides here, and hopefully that works. Let me just move that out of the way. So, well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Liz, like Jordan said, work for the Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange. It's a long name, so we often go by just MARE, if you've heard of us that way. And this is just, we're just glad to be able to introduce ourselves to you. I don't know how familiar you are. Maybe you know lots about us, like I think some of you do. But we're really grateful for this time just to kind of share with one another who we are. So Jordan already introduced us, but Ricardo is here. He's our associate director. I'm the director of family support services. We'll each introduce ourselves a little bit, and then Hannah is our child services coordinator for the central region. So we have a child services coordinator for each region. And so basically, Hannah's role lines up with Worcester County and where you all are. So that's why we're really grateful all to be here. Also want to mention that Stacia Laidley is also here from MARE. She's not part of the presentation, but she is supporting us, and she is our director of child services. So we're really grateful that she is here as well. So I'll have Ricardo and Hannah introduce themselves. But I just wanted to say briefly, as well as being the director of our family support services. So I do just kind of organize and direct our small family support department in terms of supporting and helping families along the adoption process. And there's a whole spectrum of families we help in terms of when they're first learning about adoption from foster care, and then even when they're in the matching and placement phase. So we'll talk more about what that is. But as well as working for MARE, I'm also an adoptive parent. My husband and I have an 18-year-old who came to us through foster care through the adoption track, and when he was placed with us when he was 10. And we also now are currently foster parents of a 9-year-old who's been with us almost 2 years. And that is even part of how this conversation happened, because our 9-year-old was assigned a CASA, who is Glorianne. And so lots of conversation that we've had through that. So really grateful for that. So I don't know if Ricardo and then Hannah, if you would introduce yourselves a little bit as well.
Thank you, Liz. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ricardo Franco. I am a licensed social worker, and I have been working with this organization with MARE since 2010, so the last 14 years in different capacities. Passion to work with communities, a passion to understand how we can serve these children and youth in ways that really dignify them and give them voices, and at the same time that we can raise and change a little bit, shape the conversation about adoption from foster care in this country. Besides my work at CASA, at MARE, I'm also at CASA, working with Middlesex and Suffolk County in Boston. So I am a CASA since 2020. Right now, I am working with CRA, whose goal is reunification, a 13-year-old boy. So I'm very happy that maybe he's going to spend his holidays with his bio family, which is really great. So So I combine of my work with CASA with my work with MARE. Really happy to be here. Thank you for this invitation. I will explain more about what we do in the next slides. So I just hand it to Hannah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm the Child Services Coordinator of the Central Region. Like Liz said, that includes Worcester County. So I service the youth that you serve as well. I'm one of 5 people in this role. There is one for each region in Massachusetts. Essentially, my role is to support youth and adoption social workers in identifying potential pre-adoptive families or other forms of permanency. And I'll dive a little bit deeper into what that looks like as we continue the presentation.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Thank you both. We did want to just do a little bit of a check-in. So if you could use the chat, just kind of curious where folks are in terms of like who the youth are that you were particularly working with. And I know folks watching this later would have different experiences as well. But as MARE, we work primarily with youth whose goal is adoption. So just kind of like curious if anyone could write in the chat if you're working with a youth or child whose goal is adoption. If you're familiar with concurrent planning and even just like thinking about like maybe, because partly, this might not be exactly related to the youth that you're working with right now, but later their goal could be adoption. And so that's where we come in. And so just another question to think about is, does your youth have a sibling who was adopted or who has the goal of adoption? So if anyone would just write any thoughts or any questions, or even just you can say it verbally as well. That would be fine. So okay, so we have one TPR hearing for all the kids in January. So there you go. Does anyone else have a youth whose goal is adoption?
I have a child that's maybe getting adopted. The goal.
Okay.
Also.
Okay.
I was just gonna call you out, Emma. I was gonna say, come on, Emma. I know your goal.
Oh, I didn't know my boss.
Yeah.
It's looking good. So yeah, she's so that's awesome.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah. And then I'm not sure if everyone can see all of the chat, but yes, also a 5-year-old who has a goal of adoption from DCF. Interesting, siblings have been returned. So perhaps there is there's concurrent planning, which is true. Yes. And then, so more questions. I think we can get back to some of those questions, but thank you. I think we really just want to kind of check in, see who's here. It's just helpful to know that, there are a number of folks here whose youth that they're advocating for are on the adoption track. So, and again, hopefully, even if you don't have a youth that is in that position right now, you could someday, or who knows, things could change. But most kids, once the goal is changed to adoption, they are also in what's called concurrent planning, which you probably know, which is reunification is also being worked on at the same time. So even if both are happening, the goal can still be adoption. So thank you so much for that. And I'm going to turn it over to Ricardo now, who's going to talk a little bit more about who we are as MARE.
Thank you, Liz. So as we already mentioned, it's a long name, but we go by MARE, the Massachusetts Adoption Resource Exchange. So we have been around for 67 years, since 1957. So as an organization that has been so long, the way we understand our mission has evolved over the years, and also the way we do our work has also changed. But however, at the core, we are an exchange or a connector or a facilitator. So we exist to connect, to create connections, to facilitate connections between youth and families, between families and social workers, and between different organizations in the state that work with the same goal of providing permanency for youth in foster care. We are a small nonprofit. We have 21 people in staff. And so I will speak more about the things that we do in the next slide. But I will say that as an organization that has been so long doing this, I think we have found ways of keep the fire alive, keep the vision alive, and trying to understand how the culture changes have shaped the way people perceive adoption, but also how the systems had made more complicated to work with them. So we try to keep always this in the forefront to see how can we reinvent ourselves. At the core, we have the same mission, but we are trying to always find ways to keep this functioning and productive and helping the families and the youth that we have been entrusted with. So if you can put to the next slide, please, Liz. So I will give you a minute so that you can read this by yourself. Our mission and vision.
Okay, crap.
I just want to comment 3 things about these 2 paragraphs about our mission and vision. The first thing is that we have learned that youth need stable, long, reliable connections. And sometimes the state emphasizes legal aspects of connections like guardianship, adoption, permanency with kin. But we know that there is a relational aspect of connections that is key. That's why we say we connect youth in foster care with permanent and adoptive families, because not every family should be or is in the position to adopt, but many families could be a permanent relationship to youth, and youth need those relationships. The other thing that we have learned over the years is we have seen that some groups of children and youth linger in foster care longer. And we listed those there: children of color, teens, youth, adults, civilian groups, those with disabilities, and those who identify as LGBTQ. So we want to keep that in mind, because we know that the data show us clearly that children in those groups wait or stay sometimes twice, 3 times more before they can find permanent. And many of them turn 18 without a permanent connection. Well, I don't really like the expression aging out, because I don't think you age out, but legally they age out sometimes from the system without these connections. So we have learned that, we have seen that, and we emphasize that. And the third thing that I want to share about this is we recognize that social services, social workers cannot provide those relationships, and therefore we believe in the importance of what we call a compassionate community. This is a word that we cannot do as social workers by ourselves. Even with the best resources and the best programs for the state, we need the community. We need families. We need groups. We need grassroots groups to help us to do this. So this is something that we have learned over the years. That's why we say compassionate community. So can you go to the next slide, please, Liz? Again, I will give you 30 seconds so that you can see our values. So in any given moment, we have between 450, 600 children, youth registered with us. All these youth who have been registered with us have a goal of adoption or are in the track of adoption, even though some of them are still waiting for the legal piece of the TPR, but the goal is adoption. So every one of those children, every one of those youth, we want to see in these children, in this youth, that they can flourish. We want to see them thriving with the dignity, the equity, the healing process they need and that they deserve. So that's why we start with compassion, because we believe that children are not just numbers, registration numbers. Numbers are important, that is important, but we try to, every time that we share information about a youth, a children, we try to put a picture and we try to bring their humanity, because they are not just numbers. They are stories, they have dreams, they have passions, they have losses, they have traumas, things that they need to be approached with humanity. So that's why we say we want to keep compassion. And also we know that our systems become more and more ingrained in historical inequalities. It becomes more and more difficult to work with these systems. And we know many of these youth are trapped in these systems. We have seen children being registered for us for years and aging out of the systems without finding those permanent connections. And that's on us. We have failed those youth because we're, as systems, we remove these children from their homes because we believe they are in danger. We want the best interest of the children, and then they spend 10 years, 12 years, 13 years in systems that keep them trapped. And then we say, well, it's so complicated. And that's why we believe that we have to innovate, we have to create, we have to become creative, insightful, and strategic to do this work, because it becomes more and more complicated every day. And the last thing that I want to say about our values is that as we are aware that the systems and institutions cannot provide the essential human bonds that these children need, that's why we say we need families and communities. Very important, very important. It's important that they have services, it's important they have resources, it's important that there's all this policy and legislation and all the stuff, but we know that they need connections. So that's why we emphasize connectivity or connections as part of our values. So this is in terms of mission, vision, and values. And now let's go to the next slide, please, Liz. What we actually do. So again, we build connections for youth in foster care with permanent and adoptive families. And we do this by basically three big components of what we do. The first one is raising awareness. The second one is supporting matching efforts for these youth and children. And the third one is educating and supporting pre-adopted and permanent families. The first one, raising awareness about children in foster care. We have a contract with DCF, with the Department of Children and Families, to raise awareness about the presence of youth and children in our communities that need permanent homes. We do this through many campaigns, radio, TV, newspapers, social media. I know you have among you somebody who is very well known of these campaigns. Al, I saw Al Splitter there early. He was one of the first children that was featured back in the, I don't know, I won't say the date, but it was many years ago through Wednesday's Child. So we use these campaigns to raise awareness about the importance of families providing stability, permanency for these children. Right nowadays, we still have some presence in print media, but mostly it's social media now that we use. And the second thing that we do is supporting matching efforts with for these youth and children. We have also partnered with the Department of Children and Families to help them matching children and youth with pre-adoptive and adoptive families or permanent families. Sometimes families who cannot adopt, but could be visiting resources or permanent people who are going to stay close to these children as they grow. So we pay particular attention to these groups that we mentioned: children of color, teens, sibling groups, children with disabilities, and LGBTQ youth, because we know they stay the longest in foster care without finding those permanent connections. Something that has happened over the years is that we have learned that children have a voice, they have story to share, they have perspectives, they have too much to say, and sometimes this field of child welfare is very centered in the adults. We make decisions for the children all the time and for the youth, and we have learned that we need to incorporate their voices in what we do. So I will give you just two quick examples of how we have incorporated their voices. Maybe 5 years ago, one of our child services coordinators heard from a youth who came to one of our events. Back in those days, we called the matching events adoption parties. And this youth said, "Why do you call this a party? I don't see the point. This is not a party for me. This is not happy. I have been coming to this for years. Most families want babies or very young children. This is not a party." So that's pretty simple. So we decided, okay, this is not going to be called adoption party anymore. Now we call those matching events. We call them meet and greet adoption events. Another example, for these matching events, we used to use name tags for the youth and the children, and we use a name tag with a color for the ones who were legally free and a different color for the ones who were legally risk. And it was always hard to explain to the children why we were using those name tags, because we were doing this to help the families to identify who were the children who were legally free and who were the children who were legal risk. Well, again, somebody just point out to us, why do you have to name tag us and pretty much just putting that tag and that name and that profile upon us? So we made the decision two years ago. We don't put that in any name tag anymore. We use the same colors, the same borders in the name tags for all the children. If families want to know if a child is legally free or not, they should ask that to the social worker. They can contact us. But children and you don't need to be tagged with this type of language and these type of things. So just two basic examples of how the voice of the youth have informed and keep informing what we do. And the last thing I want to say is MARE has been around, as I say, 67 years. For the first more than 50 years, MARE didn't have a Department of Family Services. So everything was like a child services until the beginning of 2000, I think at the end of 2004, 2005, somebody said, well, if we are going to find better way to do this, we better prepare families and support families and recruit families and educate families. So we created Family Support Services Department. So we have a department who is, and Liz is here to speak about that. The goal is to prepare families, to educate them, to give them the resources so that they can understand the challenges of the things that they are going to be facing once they are placed with a child who comes from foster care. So this is kind of like a brief introduction of what we do, how we do it, and now we are going to go into more detail to what we do with services for children and what we do for services for families, and then the interaction between what we do and what you as CASA do, and then we'll go from there. So I will pass it out for Hannah at this point.
Thank you, Ricardo. So as a child services coordinator, again, my role is to support the youth and adoption social workers in identifying potential pre-adoptive families or other forms of permanency. So my role begins once a child's goal is changed to adoption, and their adoption social worker sends in a referral through the MARE website, which includes information all about the youth, their strengths, their needs, what they're hoping for in a pre-adoptive placement, a little bit about their history. And with that information is how I begin my recruitment efforts. So one category of recruitment I use is internal recruitment. So what that looks like is with the information that I have, I create profiles for both the MARE website and Adopt US Kids. So the MARE website mostly targets families and community within Massachusetts. Adopt US Kids is across the country. With those profiles, I share them also amongst the family resource workers that I connect with both in Massachusetts and outside of the state. So the family resource worker is the social worker of the families that are looking for pre-adoptive placements as well. I also am connected with our communications team who help develop even farther recruitment, which includes video snapshots and professional photo shoots that you might see on the Heart Gallery or on our YouTube page or our social media campaigns as well. And then also Wednesday's Child, which was mentioned previously. Other forms of recruitment are those matching events that Ricardo was discussing in our last slide. So our biggest one is the Jordan's Furniture event, which is a statewide event. Youth and families and social workers all come together. They engage in fun activities. There's a ropes course, there's arts and crafts, there's animals you can pet and see. There's a lot going on. But the intention is that we're all doing something fun together, and pre-adoptive placements and matches are identified and communicated with the adoption social workers. We also have smaller events than the Jordan's events. They're more specialized, touching upon the populations that Ricardo was talking about. Perhaps, events specifically for neurodivergency or sibling groups or youth of color. Or even regional events. And these events specifically for the central region tend to be pretty active. So we've done roller skating events, we've done ultimate obstacle courses, we've done arts and crafts games, and then also more low-key events such as informational sessions where it's just families and adoption workers coming together to just discuss the adoption process in general. Outside my role, but alongside my role, there are also other forms of recruitment in regards to permanency alternatives. One of the more indirect forms is peer relationships. So just by the nature of these events, like Ricardo said, there are some kiddos who come for years. But with that comes relationships and friendships built between the youth themselves. So there are a couple of youth in our region that really value the friendships they've made from these events and continue on. We also have those community events. So this is an opportunity for the community to engage in the foster care adoption community. One of our more notable or recent events is fostering creativity. So what that looked like is there were youth who are a part or were a part of the foster care and adoption process to share a little bit about their story through their preferred art medium. So we had a poem, we had some paintings, we had a 3D model done, and then there was an art show to display this artwork, and then a panelist of the youth who were the artists to answer any questions that the audience had, and then share a little bit about their story. And that was a really great way to build relationships with the community, and to celebrate the artists with some of their biological family, their adoption workers, their foster families, their pre-adoptive families. The intention all being that it wasn't meant to find a pre-adoptive placement, but just to find connection in the community. Other forms are visiting resources and the neighborhood. So what visiting resources look like is maybe they're people who cannot commit to being a pre-adoptive placement, but can commit to some sort of connection and regular visitation with the youth and building an extended relationship with them. And that recruitment can be done through the neighborhood, which is our virtual community of volunteers and funders and visiting resources, and basically anyone who wants to be a part of this community but can't commit to being a pre-adoptive placement. If we go to the next slide, I'd love to introduce you to one of the youth that we were supporting. This is Lewis, and we'll show his video snapshot.
My name is Lewis Angel. I'm 11 years old. My favorite basketball team is the Celtics.
Lewis is a very caring person. He has so much value. He has so much potential and so much worth. He loves to play basketball. He loves to play video games, and he loves to draw and build relationships. He's a very social kid.
His friends is a huge thing to me, and I love making new friends. Like, I'm so social. I could go find a kid right now, and I'll make friends with them somehow. Like, I'll see a conversation that they're talking about, and I just jump in randomly, and I just go, oh yeah, and I start to greet them with my name, and then they greet me with their name, and then we're friends, just like that.
There was a time we were out swimming, and there was this girl who didn't know how to swim. She was a few years younger than Lewis, and he went over and started teaching her how to swim, showing her what to do, and kind of working with her. And it was a really cool opportunity to see how he cares. He was really working with her, encouraging her to learn how to swim. He enjoys helping and kind of feeling like a mentor to other kids to help guide them and learn new things and skills.
Dakota has talked me into it last night, actually, about being a mentor for little kids, because I love little kids, because like there's something about them that's just so cool about them. They're just adorable.
Somebody that is looking to welcome Lewis into their family, a good fit for them would be somebody who is patient, who is caring, who is understanding and willing to work with him and help him build that confidence. Also, somebody who is active and loves to be out and doing stuff, but also spending some one-on-one time with Lewis is very important for him and would be needing to be a focus also.
Can you talk about what you might be looking for in a future family or home?
One would be maybe like at least where I'm able to play electronics, or where they have like a basketball place around them, or even if they have a basketball court with them, or even a basketball hoop, and a lot of outdoor activities.
The time that Lewis has been with me, he has taught me so much. He has taught me to be more patient, to also learn to be more understanding, and he's also taught me to be more social also. And with how social he is, he's helped me to also socialize more and meet new people and be willing to try new things also.
I like funny people, or like people that are really sarcastic. like Dakota was really sarcastic, so that was a really fun fit for me. And then just like fun, outgoing, like joyful, all of that.
So obviously, Lewis is awesome. I'm sure everyone can see that from his video. So this is an example of one form of recruitment that we used for Lewis. This is a video snapshot that he collaborated with the MARE media team. So just for a bird's eye view of what recruitment looked like for Lewis and MARE's role in that is Lewis, the social worker, referred him initially to MARE through the MARE website. And with that information, we created his MARE profile and an Adopt US Kids profile. Once that was all set up, we scheduled his video snapshot and he worked with the MARE media team again to create it and have his voice out there and what he's hoping for in a pre-adoptive family, basically giving life to his profile and showing him as the awesome human that he is. While this was going on, we did some internal recruitment and reached out to family resource workers directly to see if there was any potential fits for Lewis. And we had one family resource worker who said, yes, I do. I have a perfect family in mind. So Lewis is now matched with a single father from New York who also loves the Celtics. And Lewis also had some big dreams for himself to be adopted from in the UK, which is way outside my scope of practice, but his pre-adoptive father did say that he would take him there one day if that's what he wants to do. So we think that it's, so far so good. It seems like a really positive outcome. Yeah, so I'll pass it on to Liz to talk a little bit about the family's perspective.
Thank you, Hannah, as I try to get the slide to go to the next one and not play the video again. Okay, there we go. Yes, so in terms of services for, on the other side for the adoptive families, put it into three categories as well. And again, I'm not going to go over exactly, everything basically that Hannah said in terms of our matching services, the website, the events, also our services for families to be able to come interact with social workers, sometimes with youth who are there in terms of finding a match. So that's a lot of some of our matching services. But then what I really want to just focus on for this group here is our other services for adoptive families are really our trainings and our support that we're able to offer. We're not a clinical organization in any way. We don't do clinical work, but in terms of training, we do offer, we basically kind of just in seeing what families need and hoping to maintain stable placements. We're adoptive families really need some trauma-informed parenting training and transracial parenting training. So that's really what we've been focused on. It's honestly not part of our contract with DCF, but just something that we've decided would be really helpful. And so we have so we have a fall cohort and then a spring cohort that go through a 5-part training in TBRI, which is trust-based relational intervention, which is a really highly regarded trauma-informed parenting caregiving training model. And we partner with another agency that does that for us. It's been stuff that has transformed my own parenting as an adoptive and foster parent. And we just see how helpful it is for families who are adopting to have this knowledge. And then also transracial parenting. These are two things, trauma-informed parenting, transracial parenting, that we see that MAP touches on for families, but it's not nearly enough of what they need. So we have a great partnership with a individual who was adopted transracially, who's been doing trainings with us through his company. It's been really great. And then we also have, we've been doing just kind of informal other trainings that honestly, we have a 3-person family support services department. 2 of us are experienced adoptive families. And so sometimes we're this is what families need. And so Recently we did a training on how families can build their village. So building your village, build your support network, especially in this like post-COVID, MAP and everything is still online. Families who do take the training, right, and so they're not making relationships as they used to before that. And so just trying to like see how we can be helpful in offering that type of training to families. And then on the support side, again, we're not clinical, but we try to bring the support. A lot of what we do is help families get connected with agencies, organizations, or the help that they need. So a lot of times families come to us like, oh, this is my question, and we can at least direct them to where they need to go. But some internal supports that we have a mentor-mentee program where we connect families that are currently in the adoption process with a family that's gone through the whole thing all the way to finalization. So we have families who just have been through the whole thing and can support families, answer questions. They, even point them to supports, share. We've found that it's been a really valuable thing just for families to have someone to talk to who's not their social worker, but someone who can help them along the way. And then we also have a series that we do of Ask Me, I Did It. It's similar, using the same experienced families. We do kind of monthly or every other month have a time for like a small group of families. We might have 4 or 5 experienced families join a Zoom, and then families in the process can just come and ask questions. Sometimes we'll have it on a certain topic. Over the summer, we did a series on just what do you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning? And it was really great stuff that experienced families were able to share with families in the adoption process. We also have a learning center and video library. I don't know if it shows up very well there, but basically if you go to our website, which is MARE Inc., MAREINC.org, you can see lots of different resources that we have there. There is a Michigan Adoption Resource Exchange, so don't go to MARE.org because that will take you to another state. So we had to be MAREINC.org. They must have beat us to the website. And again, we also offer those referrals to supports. But also, in general, we do just want to be helpful, for families going through the process. And, I think you probably are aware of this. Families enter as either they have to choose whether or not they want to be a foster family or an adoptive family. That's how Massachusetts does it. And so I came into the process as an adoptive family. So I was connected with MARE right away. But as I'm in the second process, I came in here as a foster parent. And so it's a very different experience coming in as a foster parent and moving to adoption. And so if there are families like that you're working with, where the youth is living with a foster family that is going to potentially be their adoptive resource, like we are happy to connect with them and to help them understand really a process that they didn't necessarily get trained in or know how it worked. So Gloria has already connected me with one foster parent, so please feel free to just connect with us and for just conversation, just to know what's out there. We're happy to talk with families. So
just one quick question, Liz. Someone direct chatted me. The
Oh,
trainings in number 2, are those are on virtual or in
Yes,
person?
I'm sorry. Yes, they're virtual. Everything's virtual. Yes, it's all virtual.
Awesome. Thank you.
I wish we could do it in person, but this is the way it is now. But yes, definitely virtual. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. And I think that kind of leads into a little bit of just kind of just the intersection of MARE and CASA that we were talking about. And even how this came about, that we're doing this, is that, like I said before, Glorianne is our foster son's CASA. And the conversation, I think we've both learned about what each other do through the process. And our story is really helping the sibling get registered with MARE, right? I mean, it's one of the things that you can do as you advocate for children on your caseload is, if the goal is adoption, is to help get them connected with these resources, which, we know social workers have so much on their plates. It's often not right. Like they're putting out a fire somewhere else. And so filling out the registration form to get the child registered with MARE is not, it's not the next thing they're going to do. And so advocating for that to happen can be really helpful, and is something that you can do, and that we worked on together, didn't we, Glorianne? So, yeah. And then another, I think, just kind of thing to think about too is just that as you're interacting with the youth that you're advocating for, is also just helping them process this whole thing that's going on, right, with them. You can, knowing that they're maybe going to events, these matching events, you can help process, help debrief with them. And so any way that we can be helpful in that is great too. And so if there's please connect with us if you have questions about that. But I think there's ways that we can all be on the same team in terms of helping these youth, because they don't always get lots of time with the folks who should be processing this stuff with them. And so sometimes, right, it's helpful to not process some things with your social worker. So I think that's really where this came from, is even just the specific situation that we were involved in together. But I think, and so we did want to just talk about what can CASA do in particular. And so I think we just had a few things, and one is really to check if your youth is registered with MARE. That's really the first step, and you can feel free to reach out, especially reach out to Hannah, because she'll be able to tell that, and she's connected with the different area offices and the different with the ADLU, and she can figure that out and help you with that.
Because there is a difference, right? Because some of them, like I used to go to the MARE profile website that you can see the youth, but there's a difference, right? And I'll let Hannah, like, I would watch for the kids that were supposed to be on it, but they might not necessarily be on the public one, right?
Yes, exactly. So that is if you went to our profile gallery right now, you would only be able to see the kids whose rights have been terminated in court. So, but then families who are licensed to adopt they basically give them permission to see all kids. So if you don't see your child or the youth that you advocate for on there, it doesn't mean that they haven't been referred to us. But yeah, definitely reach out to Hannah, and I'll let you say more, Hannah.
Yeah, no, that would be great. My email is on this PowerPoint slide. It's hannah.h@mareinc.org. If you are unsure if the youth you're supporting is already registered with MARE, I'm happy to take a look and let you know either way. Another thing you can do is, if you do see their profile and you think, well, I know that they have this really amazing personality or characteristic or interest or hobby that would be really helpful for pre-adoptive families to know, absolutely let me know. Or even if you have a better profile photo, sometimes they're not the best. So if you could send that my way, that would also be incredibly helpful. And also thinking about engaging youth voices. If you ever want me to connect directly with the youth, or that's something your youth is open to, I would love that. I've already planted that seed with the adoption social workers, but it doesn't hurt to have a CASA mention it again. Yeah.
So I saw some questions, Hannah and Liz. Somebody asked, how can we find out if MARE is already connected with our foster to adult families? So I would say Liz can tell you very quickly if the family has a profile with us, if they have created an account with us, or we can invite them to create an account with us. Anything to add to this? You are mute, Liz.
Yeah, I would just say, please just reach out to me. I'm just going to put my email. All of our emails are a very similar thing. So, yeah, so please just feel free to reach out to me, and I can see if we're connected with your family or not already.
there is another comment. It says, my experience tells me that this transracial training need to include issues of class, poverty, difference, and not just racial difference. Absolutely. Thank you, Francis, for saying that. The person who lead us in these trainings is very aware of all these things. And we try to, that's why we say we want to hear the voices of the youth, because they are the ones who educate us about what is happening in those situations. And also, Al is asking, what can community organizations do to help MARE? So there are many things they can do. The first thing they can do, Al, is to become aware of the issues the foster care communities is facing. They can join through the neighborhood. I think we include that. The neighborhood is a community of people, supporters, donors, families, professional people who care about this vision and mission. And for some reason, I mean, adoption is not a thing for them, but they can help us to connect with organizations, connect with donors, connect with programs, connect with resources. So we have right now around 360 members of that neighborhood, and they receive a newsletter every month informing what's going on, what issues MARE is involved, what needs are there. And so that's I would say that would be a way of connecting with us. I don't know, Liz, if you can think in other way of organizations helping us.
No, not necessarily. I think that's a good starting point for sure.
Do you guys need locations to host events and activities at?
Doesn't hurt to have a list
like
going
that.
for sure.
Yeah.
The central region specifically thrives off of the meet and greets, and they love doing fun things. So yeah, if any community organization is willing to host us, that would be great.
All right, who do I reach out to?
You can reach out to me.
All right, Hannah, done.
Thank you so much.
Lisa already mentioned this, but how is that a child has the goal of adoption and is not registered with MARE? That happens. And sometimes I tell you something else, and you are CASA, so you know how these things work. Sometimes the social workers have checked the box saying that yes, registered with MARE, which is not the case. So you are familiar with the court system. You are familiar with systems. We need to advocate. We need to push back. We need to say, hold just a minute. This child is not registered with MARE. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you see a child that you know the child you are advocating, or maybe it's a sibling of a child that you are advocating for, you read their profile in MARE, and as Hannah said, this profile doesn't reflect this child's personality. You can help us because we want to portray them in the best way possible, with dignity, with equality, with humanity. And sometimes we don't get that information from the social workers. So you can help us to, hey, I can give you more. You know, sometimes we wait for months for a good picture. Because we don't have a picture. The social worker doesn't send the picture. How are we going to do good recruitment if we don't have a good picture? So I would say start checking if any child you are advocating for is in the goal of adoption. Just reach out to us, reach out to Jordan or Gloria, and hey, I want to know if this child is this child registered with MARE.
Like a scenario that I would that comes up often, trying to navigate where to, make our voice known. So when we see we work with different DCF offices, obviously different branches, and we see some kids getting, there's one particular office, they're getting families left and right. These kids are finding matches with homes and getting settled in and seeing if it's going to, work. And then we have other offices where it seems like there's just nothing happening. is there someone, so is there a family resource social worker at the DCF level that would connect with you folks to find interested families? Like that's a gray area for me. Like who's driving it there mostly, or is it the adoption worker? You know, I know it's at DCF where we need to talk to and see if it's moving, but like who? Who mostly?
So DCF has area offices. They have 29 area offices in the state. So area offices have an adoption unit. Every area also has an adoption supervisor and adoption workers. These are the ones who are recruiting, and they know the children that have the goal of adoption in the track of adoption.
That's what I thought.
That's one. But then DCF has 5 ADLU, Adoption Development Licensing Units. One in Boston, one in Lawrence, one in Brockton, one in Worcester, and one in Lawrence. These ADLU offices, Springfield. These ADLU regional, they call it. They are the ones who license families.
Okay.
Pre-adoptive families. And they are the ones who have family resource workers. So if a child is placed with a foster family and this family belongs to an area office and they say, we want to adopt this child, this family will need to be licensed for adoption. Their home study or license will need to be updated, and they will need to work. And this changes from region to region. They will need to work with the ADLU. I have seen different things in different regions, but basically the ADLU, the Area Development Licensing Unit, is the one who has to support these families to get the license they need.
So let's say there's already families out there looking. Who does the recruiting? Is it the adoption team?
Is the adoption supervisor.
Yeah. Okay.
And the adoption workers, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, Hannah, if you have seen other things happening in your region.
No, I think there's a lot that goes into why some area offices are quicker with recruitment than others. I think there's just also a lot of transition in general within DCF and workers, and it can just get backed up and slow easily. But if another way that we can connect together is, if there is a pre-adoptive family or an extra resource of a visiting resource, someone in your community that that would also like to be involved, also let me know. I can push I can push forward, ask questions, see what's going on as well. I don't know.
Yeah, and then there's the layer of the CFC homes. I know there's different people who it gets on that radar, right, for those particular homes. So that's the extra person involved who needs to help with recruiting for that specialized home, right? Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
So it looks like we have Fran's hand up, and then we have one more question in the chat. So let's just answer those two, and then just to respect our presenters and everyone's time, we will kind of close off then. And if anyone has any additional questions, please email them to me and I'll make sure we connect with our MARE presenters. So Fran, what is the question that you have?
So this might not be a politically correct question, but it's important for me in the work. If DCF has already assigned an adoption worker and is working through that process, are they less likely to use MARE, or does DCF and MARE work together, or does DCF sometimes decide this is so cut and dried that we're just going to go with it, and we've got a family that might be willing to foster and then adopt? I mean, how does a child get to MARE? Is that something that usually happens? We know how we get to a child because a court appoints us. But I guess my question is, what is the connection between basically the private nonprofit that is doing it for the kids and the state system?
Yeah.
Denise, do you want to respond that one?
Sure. I don't know what's in our contract exactly, but every child who is on the adoption track, who gets moved to the adoption track, is supposed to be referred to us at MARE. That's kind of the baseline. But you're right. There's sometimes that happens. If the foster parent is going to adopt, they don't need to do that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to go through the whole thing to refer them to MARE. Sometimes a social worker, may be like, oh, there's a family in the ADLU, what Ricardo was talking about, that they know just from networking, oh, I think this family is a good match for this child. So they don't use our services. So that's it's supposed to happen, but it doesn't always happen. And that's where partly you can say, did you register, is the child registered with MARE?
Once a child goals change to adoption, they have 60 days to register the child with us. It's not just if they want or not. They have to have a reason why not.
Yeah.
There's another question. Do you ever work with kids that want to get guardianship instead of adoption? Yes. Yes, we have a program that is called WWK. Is Wendy's Wonderful Kids. They are the ones who work with children, especially with youth, whose goal is whether adoption, reunification, or guardianship.
Yep.
This is great.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all the questions that everyone asked, and especially thank you guys from MARE just spending your time with us, teaching us a little bit more about what you guys do. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate all of the work that you guys are doing on a daily basis for the children that we are serving together. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We will be in touch. I'm sure you'll hear from a few of us.
Please do. Please do.
Thank you.
We would totally jump on another call if anybody has questions. This doesn't have to be the end. So
I love it.